apologizing. It's a tough conversation because people seem to not do it very well. It must be hard. And I think when you apologize, yes, it's got to sound sincere. And there's a number of formulas I've developed over the years for these sorts of things. But when you're apologizing, you need to admit the mistake. When we're at the staff meeting, you got up to speak and I made a face, or I said this, or I said that. I told a joke at the staff meeting and I realize now that it was crude and inappropriate. Let me say up front, I have done the wrong thing. I shouldn't have done it. I think that's where people have the trouble.
Yeah. Welcome to Playing with Perspective, the suspended animation podcast, where we hear real stories from real people and we tackle all sorts of fun topics in the areas of business, marketing, entrepreneurship, mindset, the arts, and, well, life itself. It's amazing what you will pick up. Thanks for joining us. Welcome, everyone. Darren Saul here. It's Playing with Perspective, the suspended animation podcast, episode 254. And I've got a really interesting guest and a really interesting topic. Mark McPherson is in the house. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thank you for asking, and I hope you're doing well, and I hope your listeners are doing well.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm sure they are. I hope they are. And we're going to be chatting today all about managing tough conversations with difficult people. And to me, this is fascinating. Just by hearing that, I'm already intrigued. But I'd love to give everybody a little bit more of an insight into who Mark is and what he's been up to. So Mark has over 45 years of experience handling tough conversations with people. Whether inside organizations or on the front line with customers, he's well equipped to handle most people problems. He's the creator of the Workplace Performance Blueprint, Agent Provocateur Role-Plays, and Personal Conversation Scripts. He helps you speak up so you can inform, inspire, and influence, have staff work well together, master tough conversations, and deal with difficult people so you can get results. Mark is focused on leaving staff at all levels with realistic, down-to-earth strategies they can use to make an impact on the real world. I love it, man. Absolutely love it. This is such a fascinating topic. So let's dive in. How does one end up specializing in this area?
Well, I'm so glad in that introduction. Thank you for that. It was I'm a wonderful person according to that introduction.
You are.
But yes, 45 years or more, of course. Look, you mentioned realistic strategies, so that's where it really started for me. I took over a team. I had been dealing with difficult people before this, but I took over a team of a bunch of people.
Right.
Lovely, except surprise, surprise, one person in there really was not performing as well as they should have, and they were a little bit, their behavior was left a little bit to be desired. Right. And look, I made a mistake. First of all, I put it off. They'll come round, it'll magically happen. And then maybe I was too abrupt sometimes, and other times I was just too light on. The old, wouldn't it be good if, have you considered? Yeah. Well, that's fine if someone's going to play ball. But anyway, they didn't. And I went to lots of seminars, I read lots of books, I went to workshops. I thought I couldn't get enough.
Wow.
And lo and behold, I thought all of this stuff falls short. It's not practical. It's not down to earth. I remember reading a book once on the 8 types of difficult people, and I thought about it and I asked people. I got to 52 types of difficult people. I just stopped. So that really didn't cut it for me.
Yep.
So I don't think the strategies they gave were realistic. So that's why I invented my own 17 strategies.
Love that.
Into 5 groups of dealing with difficult people, and some of those strategies require speaking up and saying things. But I'm just going to throw in now that if you can deal with a difficult person without having to have that conversation, there are tricks of the trade. Parents know them. We all know them. How you can get someone to play ball without having to sometimes. But if you have to step up to the plate, you often only get one chance at it.
Love it. And funny you should say that. I listen a lot to a famous entrepreneur and fantastic podcaster and businessman, very famous. Everybody knows him. Alex Hormozy. Ever heard of him?
I do know the name,
And
yes.
he talks a lot about this topic where he says, when you're in a situation where you need to give someone feedback and give them some guidance as to how they should be better turning up, better showing up, it's not good enough to just say, oh, you're this or you're that, or you should be more this or you should be more that. You have to give them actual behaviors that they can actually do to make them better and to give them the behavior that you desire. Otherwise, it's too woo, it's too fluffy.
Oh, look, that is absolutely spot on, because there's two things you've mentioned there. One is, what do you really want the person to do? You want them to play ball. You want them to be better. You don't want them to walk out the door. You don't want them to go away upset. You want them to be a better team player. And if we keep that in mind, that's important. The second thing is, yes, if I say to you, Darren, look, yesterday at the staff meeting, and if yesterday at the staff meeting you were rude, you immediately go, oh, yes, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. Like, we're onto it.
Yep.
But a truly difficult person says, yeah, what about it?
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah.
Oh, well, yesterday at the staff meeting, Daryl, you said this, someone thought it was sexist or whatever. They go, well, it wasn't. So you're right. You need to be very, very clear. And that's why I write personal conversation scripts for people, so they know exactly what to say.
Yep.
And I'm going to give you one right now because you mentioned it. I like to start off, it's not always appropriate to use this script. So I like to say that you need to pick and choose appropriately, but I call it the FEA script, and it's the facts, explain the problem, and then ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
And this works really well if someone is going to play ball.
Mm-hmm.
So yesterday at the staff meeting, Darren, you said A, B, and C, right? Whatever it happens to be. That's the facts. Not yesterday at the staff meeting, you were belligerent, you were rude, you were sexist.
That's right.
You want to have a fight with a difficult person, tell them that they were racist or sexist. Oh, how was I?
Yep, exactly.
Ask your teenage son.
Give them details. It's not
You
good
have to
enough
say,
to just
yes,
label
at the
them with
staff
an
meeting.
adjective.
That's right. Here in your email, you said blah, 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 blah. Would it be really clear? And the second thing is the E in FEA is to explain what the problem is. That is a problem because the word because is so great, parents use it by itself. Yep. Because.
So true.
You need to say because as the manager, I have to blah, 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 blah. We have a policies and procedures here, and what you said goes, whatever it happens to be, really need to be clear. But if the timing's right, the person's right, I ask a question. Is there something, and here's one that I asked someone who fudged their timesheet, let me say, is there something I need to know?
Yep.
And other questions are, how can you and I work together to resolve this?
That's a really good one.
Yeah. Is there something that I can help you with? Asking that question works really, really well. Some of the time, I'm not suggesting you should always do it, but you really need to sometimes outline, this is what actually happened. Because people say, I can't remember doing anything wrong at the staff meeting.
That's right.
You have to explain it.
Yeah. You remember when John said this, and then you interrupted and said that, and then someone else said that, and you said that, and everybody got upset? Oh, yeah.
Well, I've got a good example. My examples are real, which is always a good thing. But I was at a staff meeting where we had a guest presenter, and I'll just say Bill. There was a female presenter. They got up to speak, and Bill did this. His eyes rolled because I was close to him, and he just went, "Oh, another woman." Now, I'm telling you, there's nothing good about that. But I did not speak up there and then at the staff meeting, at that seminar. See, this is another thing. You've got to pick your times. What you want to do is lash out and say, Bill, don't be so rude. That's what you want to say. Well, that would have disrupted the session. So it wasn't until 2 hours later that I speak. And then you have to say, Bill, at around about, you don't have to say at 1:13 p.m. But at the staff meeting, the seminar, Bill, we had a guest speaker. She got up to speak, and I actually said to Bill, I saw you roll your eyes, and I actually did it, and then you said this.
Oh, boy.
Not a debate, Bill. I saw it. Now, this is a problem for me, and this is where you always need to be careful about what is the problem. If you can't identify the problem, because I've got plenty of people who say, oh, I just didn't like it. Well, if I went around this place, Darren, worrying about everything I just didn't like, I'd spend my whole day.
Absolutely.
So be clear, and I'm sure your listeners will understand that you need to use facts.
Yep.
And people often don't get what facts are. Facts are not you were sexist. They may have been, but that's a label we put on things. You were racist.
Yep.
You said A, B, and C, and it's against the policies of this organisation.
Yep. Or it's just rude, or it's just offensive, or whatever.
Or I found it offensive. I was upset by that. I didn't like it. It put me in an awkward spot.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Love it. But let's take a step back, and I want to dig into this a little bit more in a minute. But I want to kind of set the stage a little bit. What makes difficult people difficult? Or why? Why does it happen? And what do you consider, or how do you define a hard conversation or a difficult conversation?
Wow. You've asked, well, they're great questions. Thank you. Look, in all these books I read, I couldn't find out really what a difficult person. Apparently they're negative. Apparently they're a know-all. Well, perhaps we're all know-alls from time to time. So the very first thing for me is defining what it is. And I have a three-part definition, if you like.
Nice, yeah,
and the first part is the very first thing is they break a standard of behavior. They do something wrong. That's the very first thing. That in itself, if we can nail that, what is it that they actually did? Not just, oh, I don't like them. Oh, they had a funny smirk on their face. Well, this might be true. But what did they actually do? Bill, at the staff meeting, you said, and it's against our rules. You've done something wrong. But the second thing is, now, we've all done this. Let me just get this straight. We've all walked out the door and said, oh, I shouldn't have said that, and we make amends. Well, here's the second thing that typical people do. They don't show remorse. They do not make amends. And if they do, it's a case of, oh, I'm sorry for upsetting you, Darren.
But it's not sincere.
Or you hear those ones on TV where politicians sometimes say, well, apparently I've upset someone. Or it looks like someone took offence.
Yep.
So a truly difficult person, I think they don't show remorse. And the third thing is they repeat the behaviour.
Yep.
That's my three-part definition.
Love it.
Done something wrong. They don't really show remorse. And if they do, they repeat the behaviour, sometimes within the one conversation.
Wow.
So I think that's to me is nailing that is really important, because I deal with so many people who say to me, oh, Mark, I've got this person on my staff. They're really difficult. What do they do? Oh, everything. I'm sorry that I don't know what that means.
Yeah, we need specifics.
Give me something specific, because it really is. But look, you've asked another question, which is what makes a tough conversation tough.
Yes, absolutely.
And well, my definition of a tough conversation is one where there's a fear or a concern about something bad happening. And I think four things make these conversations tough. And the very first thing is, and I'll start off with it, ramifications.
Gotcha.
Oh no, if I say that, they will. If I say that, everyone will hate me. In fact, I had someone a while ago said, I don't like being a manager. It means everyone will hate you. And I go, what for? Because you have to tell people to do their work properly. No. Oh my goodness.
A manager, if anything, a manager can inspire people to do their work without having to tell them to do that.
Well, I'm totally with you there. And that is the job. But look, other reason what makes a tough conversation tougher, that fear, is the person's reaction, our own reaction.
Yep.
And another one is the topic. Some topics are just unsavory. Who wants to talk to their mother or grandmother about your view that they need to think seriously about going into a nursing home?
Yep.
There's nothing good about that conversation.
That's right.
And what makes it tough? The ramifications. She won't speak to you for a week.
Yep.
She'll burst into tears.
Yep.
You'll burst into tears. And who wants to talk about the topic of, Mum, you need to leave your home?
Yep.
Oh my goodness. So
and things like politics, religion, like certain topics are best kind of just left aside.
Well, we want to leave them alone, but here's someone that was struggling with a little while ago. They had to tell someone on their staff, a good friend of theirs, that they were not going to get the acting up opportunity they thought they were going to get because they'd given it to someone else.
Oh,
The tough conversation is one that's going to be met with great disappointment. So for them, it was tough because what's the ramification? They'll give them the cold shoulder for the next week.
yep, yep, absolutely. Yep. Interesting. Now, I believe you've come up with a way of identifying 9 different types of tough conversations. So I'd be very interested to find out how you came up with 9 and what these 9 are.
Look, I think you could probably have 20 if you wanted to, but for me, these are the ones that happen the most. And I'll start off with one, which is just dealing with someone that's just hard work. And I deal with a lot of people on the front line of organizations, and they deal with people who are simply hard work.
Yeah. And actually, let me jump in. Like, hard work, what does that mean?
Oh, well, they instead of you just saying what you've got to say about this is how much the rates are this year or whatever it happens to be, if you're on the front line of a council, it's hard work because they interrupt, they're rude, they won't listen, they're sarcastic, they talk back, they look around the room, they fiddle with things, but most of all, they interrupt and obfuscate. So I have someone I am working with at the moment, coaching them about how to be a better communicator in the workplace, and getting answers out of them is
Yes, I know.
oh, it's just so hard. And so that's one of the things about one of the toughest conversations. No, they're not rude. They don't swear. They're just such hard work. They don't listen. I asked them the same question and they still can't give me a straight answer. So that's hard work. And I have a little script, if you like, for that, which I won't go into now, but I'm happy to talk to people about it later, just because it's a bit longer and there's a lot more to it.
Gotcha.
Look, the second type of tough conversation to me is when you have to tell someone that they haven't done the right thing. Bill at the staff meeting, you haven't done the right thing. That's a tough conversation because who wants to do it?
Yeah.
Come on, Darren. We all just want to go to work, have a good time. Yeah, sure, it's hard. Susie's birthday, that's terrific. But then we go home. But sometimes we have to say to people that their work is not of good enough standard. What they said was inappropriate. Their comment to whatever was so.
And I'm assuming that these conversations are happening privately.
Well, that's a very good point, because I make the joke about the confidential conversation I saw that someone had with someone else with glass walls, and it was literally one of those offices that had glass walls, and I thought, oh man. As soon as they closed that door and looked as stern as they did, I'm telling you, everyone knew that was a tough conversation and not so confidential. Yeah, you need to be very, very careful, because let's get back to it. What's the point? The point is to get this person to do better. And if you're going to embarrass them,
you just added fuel to the fire.
You're in trouble. That's for sure. So they do need to you need to pick your times. That's one of my 3 prongs, if you like, of having tough conversations. Is the very first one is take control of the conditions. And that means everything from what are the rules? Who else needs to be there? Do you need to document this? Is there some policy and procedure that you don't know about? Should they have a support person?
Should you plan what you're going to say?
Should you plan what you're going to say?
Don't just jump in and speak off the cuff.
Should you? And that's why I'm into personal conversation scripts. I'm very into knowing what to say, in what order, and I'll give you one thing. After you've said it,
zip.
Shut up.
Zip it.
Because look, you can ruin one of these tough conversations with family members or people at work by saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry it came to this, Darren. Oh, look, I hope we can still be friends. Oh, I'm sorry this happened. I hope you don't think I'm just being a bit picky."
That's right.
Oh, you can think those things, but it really negates everything you've just said, and you're onto a brand new topic.
You've got to really be have a lot of thought into what you're going to say, the structure of the conversation, and stick to the game plan. If you let the emotions take over, you could unravel everything you just did.
Well, that's why some people say to me, "Oh, is it okay to take notes?" Well, sure. There's nothing wrong with taking notes in. What you don't want to do is, and another thing, just if you're referring to notes, that's not a problem. In fact, I'm actually a big believer in you referring to something, but for this reason. Darren, yesterday I've got a recording here of what you said at the staff meeting at when the person got up to speak. So you can see I'm not looking at you. I'm referring
Very
to
cool.
this note. And there's a reason for that. And there's a lot of reasons for it. But one is, look, eye contact is important. I'm looking at you at the moment. I probably should be looking up at the webcam a little bit better. But eye contact is important. It would be very rude and look a bit odd if I was just talking like that.
100%.
But in some of these tough conversations, be warned. If you are dealing with a difficult person, they are much better than you are at staring. So be careful.
Yeah.
And so one of the ways of doing that is actually to do this. And the secret to this is, although I'm looking at you now, is this makes this the bad thing.
Right.
And I'm sure that most parents can relate to this. And I'll cut this little story short by saying, you know, your teenage son comes home with a report card, and it's not too good. So we start saying things like, "Here's the card. Here's the card. Look at it. Look, no, this is terrible." And halfway through this conversation, Darren, the parent says, "It's not working." Oh, it's not you, son. We love you. It's your behavior. But I'm telling you, all this says it's them. But if you said, and let's remember, you don't want to just bawl your son out. If you do, go for it. You want to get them to play ball.
That's right.
And the way of doing that said, this here is a problem. Your report is a problem. That mark is a problem. This is the problem. And then when you use eye contact, Darren, what you and I need to do is to work together to improve that, because that's the problem. That's a little technique that you can use. And these days, when we don't have so much paper in the office, you know what? Use your laptop. There are ways. There's so many little techniques there which I think are really important. And that one, eye contact is important. Don't overdo it. It's hard work. You can assign positives and negatives to things. Yeah, just a little technique.
And there's something that I learned years ago, and I think they called it the sandwich technique, where when you're giving someone feedback, positive or negative, but usually negative, you start with something positive, you talk about whatever it is that you want to facilitate or improve, and then you end up with something positive. So you're bookmarking it with something positive and friendly, and it's like you saying, we like you, we just don't, the behaviors we want to change, etc.
Yeah. Look, it's not a technique I really like.
Okay.
I think there's a place for it. When you say to Bill that their behaviour at yesterday's staff meeting was inappropriate, unacceptable, unsatisfactory, I don't think there's a real need to start off with, "That's a great report you did yesterday. By the way, I'm now going to bawl you out
Thanks
about
for bringing in the
something."
cake today, Bill.
Yeah, the cake.
Now.
Thanks for the croissant. But then at the end of that, I think you need to be very careful about saying, once you've said, I don't want you to do that again, please, and I'll give you a little script for this. I think at the end of that, then saying something positive can negate what you've said.
I agree. That's a good point.
However, there's a time to use this, and sometimes it works really well. Now, having said that, Darren, I do really appreciate the fact that you, at the end of the staff meeting, thank the presenter or whatever it happens to be. Yep. But I think it's got to be very meaningful, those positive things. It's got to tie in somehow. Otherwise, it's like, I love your shirt, Darren. By the way,
By the
your
way.
work yesterday was hopeless, and thanks for the cake you brought in for Susie's birthday.
Yeah.
I think they've got to
That's
relate
excellent.
to each other. Otherwise, I think you can negate what you've said. So there's a few techniques around which I think have their place, but I don't advocate them. I'm more into saying what needs to be said up front, but I use an expression tactfully assertive.
Oh, I like that.
So you can be assertive, but still be quite unkind. I don't have to be aggressive or passive to say, listen, Darren, your shirt really is hopeless. And we none of us like it. It looks ridiculous. Now, is that aggressive? Well, I didn't yell or scream or point my finger at you, but it wasn't very nice. So I think we need to be tactfully assertive. And that's why I say get rid of words like belligerent, hopeless,
Right.
racist,
Yeah.
sexist. It's not that the person isn't those things.
We don't
It's
need
that
to
they
use those
rarely
words.
help. They rarely help.
Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't racist. Oh, everyone's got a different definition of racism, you know.
Yeah.
Then you get into this whole conversation.
It's too
I say,
ideological. It's too broad.
what you said yesterday to that person was not reasonable, not acceptable. I don't want you to say it again.
Love it. Yeah. Very cool.
But
All right. So we've covered 3. What are the other 6?
I'll give you another script very shortly. But another one is you have to actually deliver the punishment sometimes. It's all very well to say, listen, son, lovely son of mine, you're not going to get your pocket money this week, but somewhere along the line they misbehaved. You're going to have to do it. It's the same in the workplace. And I'll give you a technique first, and I'm going to give you the reward or punishment at the end. So I'll be brief with this. There's a bit more to it. FEWER. It's a technique, a little script I advocate when you're saying to somebody they've done the wrong thing and you want them to do better. Facts. Bill, at the staff meeting yesterday, you said, explain. That's not acceptable. That's unfair. Because we have rules, we have this, someone's offended, I've got a written complaint here, whatever it happens to be. So, want, the W in Fury is for want. What do you want? Now, you and I get it. We know what you want. But a difficult person, they will play the game of not sure. They'll go away from this meeting and saying, oh, I don't know, he went on about something. You've got to actually say, what I want you to do from now on is to make sure you don't say those sorts of comments ever again. Or you might want them to apologise, but be very clear about what you want. And I say the next E is for explain again, because they won't get it. You have to say, if you can do that, that'll be fantastic, because whatever it happens to be. Now comes the R, which is rewards and punishments. In the workplace, we don't have too many rewards. There's no pocket money. There's none of this. But I did say to somebody who made an error, a rather large error on their timesheet, I did actually say, look, if you can fix that, this conversation's forgotten about.
Beautiful.
That's it. That's all I want.
Simple.
But you do have to say the potential punishment or penalty. People don't like the word punishment, so I changed it to penalty.
Yep, love it.
The penalty is, however, if you continue to make those sorts of mistakes on this, once again, this is the bad thing. If you continue to make those sorts of mistakes, we will be having this conversation again, and it will be recorded.
Love it. Yep.
Or whatever it happens to be. The next, you have to give the next level.
Yeah.
Now, this gets me to the thing of, wow, so what if they do it again? There's nothing worse than a parent or a manager saying time and time again, this will happen if. You have to sometimes then deliver what I call the punishment. Darren, you're copying this. But Darren, this is the second time I've had to speak to you about comments at staff meetings which have been against our policies and procedures. What I'm going to do is speak to you tomorrow, and it'll be called a counselling session, a formal counselling session. It will be recorded or whatever, I don't know, whatever
great.
it happens to be. You've actually got to go that extra step, and it's horrible. Because I have taken someone right through to the disciplinary procedures. It's uncomfortable, it's unpleasant, and every conversation you have with them is tough going. for them. I want to be fair here for them as well as yourself.
For sure.
But that's another tough conversation, is actually doing that.
Wow.
So I've got more. Okay.
Yeah, give us one or two more.
Oh, okay. I'm going to say apologizing.
Yes.
I don't know, well, because it came up earlier. So let's talk about apologizing. It's a tough conversation because people seem to not do it very well. It must be hard. And I think when you apologize, yes, it's got to sound sincere. And I just have there's a number of formulas I've developed over the years for these sorts of things. But when you're apologizing, you need to admit the mistake.
Yep.
Yesterday, Darren, when we're at the staff meeting, you got up to speak and I made a face, or I said this, or I said that. I told a joke at the staff meeting and I realize now that it was crude and inappropriate. Let me say up front, I have done the wrong thing. That's what you've got to say.
Beautiful.
I did this. It was the wrong thing to do. I shouldn't have done it. I think that's where people have the trouble.
Yep.
You know?
Just get it out. Say it. What is
Yeah,
it?
I did the wrong thing yesterday on camera. I said it was the wrong thing to say. It upset people. Not it looks like it did, or maybe it upset people.
That's right.
And I think you have to actually apologize. I apologize for that.
I love it. Yep.
I'm sorry for that.
Beautiful.
And I'll go one extra. These are just extras just in case. Sometimes you have to make amends. Not always. Sometimes you actually say, I will now go and correct that.
Oh, cool.
You can't take back your words that you said yesterday, but sometimes you have to. So I added that into the tough conversations, Darren, because some people seem to have a lot of trouble with it. And I think I know why. Who wants to stand up in front of other people and say, I did something wrong?
Of course.
I don't.
No, none of us. It's all about our ego, you know. Our ego's bruised.
Oh, it's horrible.
Of course.
But while we're on this roll, here's another tough conversation, I think, giving compliments. Now,
interesting.
why is this a tough one? Well, it's because it's easy to stuff it up and it's easy to offend people.
Yep.
Someone said,
especially nowadays.
it's only a few weeks ago that actually someone said to me, all I said to her, as soon as I heard him say, I said to her, I thought,
alarm bells.
oh, what's coming here now? It looks like you've taken off weight. And I thought,
oh boy, oh no, oh no.
Man, can you not? Look,
No.
you can say that to some people in some relationships. You can say that to some people.
Yep.
And they will appreciate, well, thank you. I'm glad someone noticed. But boy, oh boy, you be very, very careful, because giving compliments, I say, if you're going to give a compliment, think. When in doubt, don't.
Yep.
But if you are going to give a compliment, sometimes at work, be very specific. Not say, oh, you look good.
Yeah. Yeah.
What does that mean? Are you flirting? I don't know what that even means. But if you say, oh, listen, Darren, I'll get back to your shirt again, Darren. Darren, I really like that shirt on you. It's great.
Yeah. Love that. That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or those shoes. I love the shoes, how they match the rest of your outfit. Very
just
nicely
be
done.
Very, very careful about personal things.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. But it kind of brings us to an interesting point in the conversation as well, where we're talking about how to rectify things once they've happened. What advice do you give people to not fall into this trap in the first place?
Well, that would be a good thing to do, not to
Take
have
30 seconds before you open your mouth.
Well, think is always a good thing. I'd say when in doubt, don't. I do like those things you see in doctors' surgeries and places like that. Often that I can't remember what they are now, but before you open your mouth, is it polite? Is it helpful?
Yeah,
Is it generous? Is it kind? All those sorts of things. I think they're not bad things. What the reasons why I'm into very clear practical strategies is because what's respectful to one person is disrespectful to another. What is sexist to one person is just a funny joke to another person.
Yep, very true.
So I think I like to be a little bit more specific, but I do like the idea of just simply thinking. And when in doubt, don't say anything. Just please, because I work with people all the time who say, I really wanted to lean over the counter and tell him exactly what I thought. I said, well, here's the problem with that. The camera never picks up the fact that they swore at you under their breath. What the camera will pick up is you leaning across the counter and say, listen here, you, don't you say anything like that again, or I'll get security and you'll be out of here. That's what they're going to pick up. And that's another trick, if you like, of truly difficult people. They're very well aware of who's around them. Whereas quite often we just react. So that's, once again, 30 seconds, just think.
Just think. And you brought up a nice point as well, in that you have to understand the relationship you have with that person. Certain relationships allow for more and certain relationships don't. So always use caution, but if you really are comfortable, no problem, but you've got to be really careful.
You are spot on. I'm going to go way back to the late 70s. Well, that was a long time ago, when I was a school teacher. And believe me, all these kids could be misbehaving. One of them, you have to almost grab them to get them to be quiet, sit down, get on with your work, stop talking. Another person we can look at and just go, and they're almost in tears.
There you go.
So you need to pick your target. So one of the complaints that kids often have is, oh, how come you say that to him or to her or not? Because people are really different. And that's the same in the workplace. There's things that I could say. In fact, I said to someone at work, and his name was Bill, funnily enough, who talked very loudly on the phone, and everyone hated it. So I took him aside for a cup of coffee. Here, you're talking about the confidential thing. We have both men, so there was a bit of a relationship there, just for the fact that we're both men. And I said, look, Bill, whether you realize it or not, I don't know why I said that. That's my little softness sort of thing. Sometimes when you're on the phone, you speak at a volume which makes it difficult for people like me to do my work. So here's the thing. How specific was that? That's a fact, not you speak too loudly on the phone. How do I? Well, what I mean. So you have to go to the facts anyway. So I said that. Bill was devastated.
Wow.
Absolutely shocked. Said, what do you mean? Oh my God, what do you mean? It's just my voice. I can't help myself. I said, he was absolutely shocked, almost really upset. So I'm glad I had the conversation with him in private. I'm glad I used the words, sometimes you speak at a volume which makes it difficult for me. I didn't introduce anyone else.
Very cool.
Me to concentrate on my work. Now,
See,
that's
why
fact.
Scripts are so good, because you really thought about what you're going to say.
That's the fact. And what's the problem? It makes it difficult for me to concentrate on my work. Not just you speak too loudly and it's really annoying, which is true, by the way.
I've been guilty of that. I get excited on the phone and then I start talking loudly and really my energy increases. But so I'm no good in open offices. I have better in my office because I'm too.
Well, this was an open office, so I actually blame the open office more than Bill. But I'm not sure just quite how we got into that, but you need to be upfront with people. You need to be honest. But I'm going to give you 3 questions your listeners really, and they'll like this because I think they'll relate to it. Good. There's three questions you really need to ask yourself before you have one of these conversations. Having said that, when you're on the front line of an organization and someone's swearing at you, you don't have time to go away to the staff meeting and have a conversation. Think about it. I get that. But if you're going to have a tough conversation with someone at work about their performance or at home about the work they've done or not done, 3 questions. Number 1 is, what's happened and what's the problem? Too many people go into these, Darren, without knowing exactly what the problem is. The problem is, they're just hopeless, or they're this, or they're always this. What's the problem? They said this at the staff meeting. That's a problem because whatever. The second thing is, what do you want the person to do? Every tough conversation is about getting the person to do something. But I have people I do where they say, I just want to tell them how I feel. Well, sure, if you just want to shoot your mouth off, fine, but don't expect anything to change. What do you want the person to do? To apologize, to not do it again, to redo the the report,
Yep.
to make sure they come to the staff meeting on time from now on and don't disrupt people when they walk in. Be very, very clear. And another thing is, can they do it? Because I have had a person who really, I wanted them to do their reports at a standard I find acceptable, not down here.
Mm-hmm.
Can they actually do it?
Yep.
Cut people a bit of slack, because if you just tell people to do this and do that, and they say, I don't really know what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
And the third thing is just, is a tough conversation really the way to do it?
Yep. Yep. But I love that we're dealing with specifics, because I think that's so important. The details. You have to give people direction, specifics, so they understand what happened. Otherwise, it's too fluffy and broad, and everybody says, "Oh, he's just cranky," or whatever.
No,
He's having a bad day.
people need to leave these conversations being very clear about what it is. And someone said to me, FEWER. Oh, that seems so complicated. It takes 26 seconds.
Yeah, I love it.
It doesn't take you a lot of time at all. And if you have to, have it with you, but just don't read it out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So there's some things you need to remember.
Beautiful. Now, I want to talk about scripts,
Ah.
because I think scripts are really important, whether they're mental framework scripts or actual verbatim scripts.
Well,
tell me a bit about what.
Well, I wrote this because too often in these books I was reading and the workshops I went to, they said, you need to speak to the person about their behavior. And I said, yeah. And say what?
Yeah.
And then sometimes they'd give examples of what to say. And I go, no. Because if you're dealing with a difficult person, you say, look, sometimes, Darren, when you do X, Y, and Z, it makes me feel really upset. Yeah. Well, a difficult person comes back with, and so, or worse, that's my intention. So that's why I got the scripts, because I felt I needed, and I know people need, and I can see, look, I see people's confidence go way up. I was dealing with a woman not that long ago who came to see me. She was in tears because she'd taken over a little team, and she was in the IT game.
Cool.
And she said, I've tried everything. They're not doing this. They're not doing that. They almost laugh at me. And she was in tears by the time it finished.
Wow.
Just to give her one script, and that was the FEWER script. FEA, facts, explain, ask, wasn't going to do here. She needed to step up to the plate. But to give her that little script where she knew what to say, and we practice it on screen just like this. I said, yeah, well, you've called me into the office. I was going to use her name then. Susie will do. You've called me in the office, Susie. What's the problem? And then Susie had to run through the script, and to get her to do that a few times gave her the confidence and the ability. And it really was only about 1 week from that she rang me up and said, you know what? It actually worked. Right. I'm not pretending a script will always get you the result you want. It doesn't matter what a police officer does or whatever to anyone. It doesn't mean people are going to play ball when you're pulled over to the side of the road. But having a script gives you not only knowing what to say, but it really lifts that confidence way up there. So that's why I devise them. I call them personal conversation scripts, because I will give you the FEWER, just for example. There's others. But you have to make this your own. The way I speak isn't the way you speak. And in different organizations, different parts of Australia, different parts of the world, people have very different sorts of language, and you really need to pick up on that. So I will give you the formal script. Now you put it into your words, because you need to. That's where I use scripts. I think they're invaluable, but just don't read them out, and you'll.
Oh, of course,
yeah. But look, I'll just say one thing. I got halfway through a script with someone once, and I was talking about something. It was actually on a laptop, and I was referring to it, and they started to interrupt. And without looking at them, I just said, Darren, we'll talk about that in a minute.
I love it.
And I'm
in the middle of something.
And it's very different to that, to that,
Yes, I
to
love
that.
Yes.
whatever. And you were talking about relationships. Yeah, it really does matter. You,
Yep.
you try and do that to someone on the bus, and
Oh, cool. Come
it
off there
might
with
be
a black eye.
a different matter.
Yeah.
But in the workplace, yeah,
Yep.
scripts actually
Brilliant.
work, and knowing when to stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So your advice as well would be before any difficult conversation, take a few minutes, think about what you are trying to achieve, think about what you're going to say, think about how you're going to structure the conversation. And then once you've delivered what you have to say, zip
Yes,
it.
but look, I have a script for dealing with difficult people on front line of organisations or anywhere for that matter, and I call it anatomical. As you can see,
Ah,
I
very
really
cool.
do like acronyms
Yes, I like this.
because they help me remember. But just a few things out of anatomical. You don't have to remember everything out of it, but it does start off with A, getting their attention,
Yeah.
and N is using their name. But here's a little thing. The O is for options. So I'm jumping up to there because uh, we don't have all the time in the world. Sometimes it's really useful when you're having a tough conversation or dealing with a difficult person to give them options.
Yeah.
Because I have seen, this is the way it's going to be. That's, but giving them the options. Look,
That's a really good point.
this is now just off the top of my head, Darren. Look, what we can do is we can work this out now. We can book in a time for us to work together, or you can go away and think about it and send me an email about how you'd like to proceed.
Very cool.
And then Darren says, I'd like to do such and such. That's not one of the three options because you need to be assertive,
Yep.
but you need to be a bit tactful in giving people some options. People tend to like options.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter to me which one of those you choose. I'm not giving you all the freedom in the world, but giving people options. And just like when I was referring to this, it's sometimes really great, as I did, to say this, this, or this. So which one of those would you like?
Yeah.
And on a counter, I've actually done things like, put down a bit of paper. So do you want this one, or that one? The pen, the paper clip, and something else, whatever it happens to be.
Love it.
But it really does help people. Certain people call that anchoring, all sorts of different things in different programs. But
And I do like the hand. The hand is like
look,
the hands, but using the hands correctly. That's the trickiest part.
funny, I see a lot of people. We're going to a slightly different topic, but it is a part of the whole.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people in the presenting and communication skills game talk like this. So what's really important, Darren, is that we've got lots of things going on. So what we really need now, this is fine. It's not this.
Yeah.
It's okay, but it's not very helpful.
Yeah.
It's much better, as I do and you do. We keep our hands down here until we have to say, listen.
Yeah. It's more.
You often only get one go at this tough conversation with your grandmother about going into a nursing home. You better get it right. So there's a time to lean in.
It emphasizes. It has more impact when you use it seldomly.
This is always important. And you will notice, here's a little trick of the trade. When I gave FEWER, I gave it in the right order across the screen.
Yep. Cool.
But to me, I gave it back the front.
Yes. Yes.
And because I am not, you're looking at me in that direction.
Exactly.
at me. So it means when I say FEWER, I put it in the direction of you. Now, what is the benefit of that? I think it takes the quality of my communication from 75% to 80%. It's not magic. These things just help when you're having a tough conversation with a difficult person, because a difficult person, and I've met a lot in my life, I've had to deal with quite a few, they will use any little thing you do wrong in their mind to not listen to you. Oh, I don't know. He had a funny look on his face. Oh, I don't know. His hands were everywhere. They'll use anything they can to not listen. So the better you are at these things, as I said to you, I even said this, the person's confidence went up.
Yep.
As opposed to the person's confidence really went up. Well, I don't know what that is.
And the other great thing that I'm hearing as well when you speak is that you pause. That's another really important strategy, is pausing at the right moment. Because if you keep talking and rambling and using your hands, it becomes one big mess and one big distraction. But if you stop and pause, it has effect.
Look, it most certainly does. I always talk about three codes of communication. I think your listeners will really like this. There's the verbal code, and that's what I'm talking about when I talk about my scripts. What words actually come out your mouth?
Yeah.
The second one is the vocal code, and in that I include things like character, continuity,
Yep.
clarity,
Mm.
and color.
Oh,
And color is all about how colorful your language is, if you like, with the pause,
yep.
the pace at which you like to speak,
Yep.
the power in your voice, and of course the pitch.
Yes.
What comes into that is the cadence too, because
That's right.
we have a habit, and New Zealanders blame it on Australia, and Australia thinks blame it on New Zealand. But we have that habit at the end of a sentence,
That's right.
and all of these things most certain. And that's just in the vocal code. And then we have the visual code, which
Yes.
I wrote. I wrote 11 essential visual communication skills, which
Wow.
I think they are the essential ones.
Wow.
And I even put eye contact last, just because people expected it to be first.
Gotcha. But very important. And I agree that the downward deflection of your voice is much more assertive than the upward deflection at the end.
And you can use that. Well, here's a classic thing to me, and I think you'll. I was on a plane last night, so this is on my mind. So you hop onto the plane, and the flight attendant says, they look at your boarding pass, or these days it's on a phone, and I can't read it on a phone. They say, but you watch them. This is what happens. That they have, I call it the welcoming to resolute continuum. And you watch them at the beginning, it's like the head goes, I'm exaggerating. Hello, Mr. McPherson, you're in an exit row. Are you aware of that? And have you looked at it? And you watch the head moves, because it's all friendly. The head moves, they smile, and their voice goes up and down.
Yes.
But that's how we, in these tough conversations, start at the beginning with, hi, thank you for making a time to meet. That's great. See, this is the welcoming. Then we go to the resolute part, which is the head no longer moves.
Yes. Like that.
The voice is a lot more even.
Yep.
Now, we do this naturally 50% of the time. You watch people. They'll say, oh, hi, Darren, how are you? I've actually got something very important to speak about. Watch the whole matter change. So we do it naturally.
We do.
But in our tough conversations, especially with difficult people, we can actually deliberately use this. Know when to
Do that.
and know when to no longer move the head, lean in if necessary, be careful, because some people do find that as confrontational. Just be a bit careful, with an even voice. Even tends to mean serious.
Serious. And also deeper voice.
Yeah. Ah, yes, and a slightly deeper voice. I do not want to see the same flight attendant when they're giving me the instructions about the air safety to.
Yeah. That's right.
Oh, wow, look at this. They naturally do it.
Yep.
But we want the airline pilot, the pilot to come on it, and I want them to have that boring voice.
Definitely.
I don't want them to say, "Hi, I'm your pilot."
Yeah. And I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. So that's why we can use this welcoming to resolute continuum, because it is a continuum, how we change from this to a more serious role, not boring and dull and whatever, but more serious.
Yep.
We can use that to our advantage. So we really should be aware of that when we have these conversations. And sometimes you can stuff this up if you're not aware of that continuum. People think you're being friendly and you're not. People think you're being unfriendly. And we've all had it.
Yep.
Oh, you okay? You look very serious. No, I'm fine. I was just thinking.
Yeah.
See, so it's very easy to mix this up, but we use it to our advantage.
Absolutely. And it just goes to show you how much of communication is non-verbal. You know, we've all heard this 100 times before, but it really is.
We have, and I don't want to overplay it, because I think that the verbal, vocal, and visual, they have to go together, because they all work together as
Definitely.
I am trying to make it work right now with my little hands.
Definitely.
Maybe they're
And
not so little. I
and
don't know.
actually on that point, do you find that you have a different result when you do this in person versus through a screen?
Yes.
Hmm.
I'd rather not say that. I wish there was no difference, but I think there is because you can see my whole body. You can
Yeah.
see a lot more around you unless I go right back here, and
Yeah.
which is
Still
not
not the same.
it's
You're
not
further
necessarily a
away now.
bad
You
thing,
feel more distant.
but it's it works. I think if you're going to have a tough conversation with someone about some issues with some people and some relationships, it's better done there in person.
Yeah.
Once again, a truly difficult person will find anything possible about you. And you won't believe this, Darren. He had a conversation with me about my poor report writing on a phone call.
Oh,
Didn't even have the common sense or heart to see
interesting.
me in person. So you'll always find
Yep.
that a truly difficult person will find something about you or whatever. So
Gotcha.
I think these conversations are best. However, be warned about this fact that Darren's been working from home for the last 2 weeks. Darren, I want you to come to the office tomorrow.
Yeah. That's
I've got something serious to talk to you about.
that's a good point.
Wow, is that the best way of handling it? And
Yep.
maybe no matter how you say it, it's going to be seen as, oh my God, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
And maybe they are, but I think you made a great point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because even with my hands down here, at least in person, you can actually see they're down here. They're not
That's right.
they're not sort of moving around, and I'm not scratching my knees or whatever
Yeah.
I'm doing. So
Love it.
yeah,
Love it.
I'm with you.
Fantastic. And I'd love to hear one more example of when you might have worked with somebody and this person was finding it difficult to correct their behavior. And how did you go about that? And what was the result?
I'm going to give you two
All
examples.
right, great.
Once I worked with some people, and you won't believe this, I actually separated them.
Oh,
There
well,
were two people. I inherited a group of people. I've inherited a lot of teams over the years, and this particular team had been left unled, if you like. That's always difficult. And I deal with a lot of new managers who are working with their mates at this level, and suddenly they're in charge. And oh my God, these are the people I drink with on a Friday night. I've even
yeah,
been to his wedding. And now,
yeah,
so these two people were always at each other's throat. It was really annoying. You could see other people would look at me and go, so it was obviously disturbing other people. And I separated them because I did not have the time or energy, and neither did other people on the floor, to deal with this. I did not have the time. People say, oh, you should. Well, I really did not have the time
mm,
to sit there and work out who did what. All I need to know is that these people once had a romantic relationship and they no longer had one.
uh-huh.
That's all you need to know. And I moved them. In fact, I wrote about this on LinkedIn a while ago, and I think I started off with it's not primary school, because that's what someone actually said to me.
Yep.
The person, the male out of this group, I actually said to me that. And what do you want to do? You want to say, well, if you act like primary school kids, too bad. Well, I didn't.
Yeah.
Knock it off. So I actually moved them. So there's an example of where I moved them. And he said, why should we both have to move? Because obviously he thought it was all her fault,
That's right.
which I don't think was the case. So I said, because I think it's the best thing to do.
Beautiful. And then after that,
That
everything
that
was fantastic.
well, not well, I've got no doubt they still didn't like each other, and still had, if they were both in the lift together, I'm sure it was
Yeah.
unpleasant. But that wasn't my job. Was to look after the safety of this team, and I say
Yeah.
the psychological safety, the mental health safety, the lot of this team. That's what I did. Now, I also took over a team where someone was doing their own thing,
Hmm.
not following the strategic plan, and the problem was they'd been doing that for a long time.
Uh-huh.
And I really had to bring them in. And they had a lot of people in the community who were on their side.
Hmm.
They loved them doing what they were doing, but it wasn't efficient, effective. It wasn't in line with the strategic plan. It really wasn't a useful thing.
Yep.
But I let them go for too long. But I eventually had to have the conversation. The conversation went along the lines of, the strategic plan says A, B, and C here. The problem for me is you're doing these things as good as they are. I get that. But the problem is, there's the problem, they do not align with the strategic plan from this office, from the hospital, because it was a hospital, or the New South Wales as a health, as an organisation as a whole. That's the F and E bit. And then the W is what I want you to do. And this is where you need to figure out what you want the person to do beforehand, because otherwise all I've done is just bawled them out.
That's right.
What I want you to do is to organise a time with me now where you and I can sit down and work together how we can make sure the business plan fits in with your individual work plan as best as possible.
Perfect.
With some sort of transition from one to the other.
Beautiful.
That will make sure, and you have to do this extra bit, I reckon, whether they like it or not, that will make sure that this whole unit is on track and we're all following the strategic plan, and we can work with each other and help each other out. It'll make sure I'm doing my job as a manager. Now, the reward and penalty here is I didn't give a penalty because I just wanted the reward.
Yeah.
If we can make that time now and work together, I'm sure everything will be fine.
Beautiful.
Was that the best thing to say? Because I always look back and say, fine, was that really the best thing I could have come up with? You know, fine,
But
beautiful.
The intent,
I don't know.
The intent was there.
Yeah, but fine is as good as it got. Now, that person did come on board, but after about 6 months, they decided it wasn't for them and they left.
Oh, okay.
So I want to be clear here, not every situation works out perfectly, but then again, maybe the best thing for her, it was a female, her, the unit, the community we serve, and me, was actually the best thing. She moved on. But over that 6 months, I think we got some good stuff going.
Love it.
And here's the kicker for me. Other people in the team were very happy that I got off my backside and dealt with this problem. And it was a problem because they are saying to themselves, no doubt, I'm playing ball here. I'm doing what I have to do, whether I like it or not. Why is she doing her thing?
Gotcha.
And you need respect for yourself. You need respect from other people. But there's a case where I've got lots of cases where things have worked out perfectly, but I just wanted to give you that because, sure, going in every day, I knew that person didn't particularly like my presence. I'm sorry. This is what happens as a manager. You take the job.
Yep.
I take the kudos for what it's worth.
Yep.
I take the pay. It's never enough. But you know, there's something else you have to take with this. It's called the responsibility.
That's right.
And that means sometimes I know what I have to say. I've got those 3 questions under my belt. I know what the problem is. I know what I want them to do. And yes, a tough conversation is the right way to go.
Yep.
I know what to say.
Love it.
And I'm going to practice it so I can say it well. Will it be beautiful and will the world be rosy afterwards? Maybe not, but I have to do it.
Brilliant. Love it. And what's your view on how long you should wait? Because a lot of people will procrastinate to have that conversation.
Oh, my goodness. I think we should list the mistakes sometimes. There's often no perfect time. I gave you that example of someone at a staff meeting where what I wanted to do was say, hey, knock it off.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't appropriate. I waited for 2 hours, and I waited 2 hours because I know they had to go and do a job and stuff like that. So I think you've got to, if you keep putting it off, I think the difficult person has a right to say, at least not to you, but at least in their mind, well, it wasn't a problem last week. Suddenly it's a problem now.
Yeah.
What's changed? Not me. Something wrong with you. So I think the longer you put it off, usually the worse gets, although sometimes things do magically rectify themselves. Sometimes a difficult person suddenly wakes up one morning and goes, you know what?
Yeah.
I've been really difficult and rude. I'm going to change my ways. Well,
Love it.
it rarely happens.
Love it.
So I think sooner,
Yeah.
mantra is sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Have these conversations, because the longer you let that go, the more the behavior gets worse. Other people get annoyed, just putting it politely, that they get annoyed with it when they don't see you rectifying situations. And the difficult person has more of a case of, well, they've let it go so long. What's the problem?
That's right. Yeah. Beautiful. Well, Mark, that's absolutely fantastic. We've covered some great ground.
I'm exhausted.
It's hard work, I know. Even just remembering all the acronyms. But I think once you start using them, they become second nature. And like just driving a car, you just always use the same process when you're dealing with any situation.
You're right. People often, as I said to you before, people say FEWR. I can't remember that.
Yep.
Boy, oh boy.
Yep.
You can, and if necessary, you write FEW down here or whatever it happens to be, just some dot points.
That's right.
Anatomical, we just covered a little bit of that. O, you don't have to remember. Just take some things around it. I'm just going to leave you with that T in there. Tell them what you can do, and tell them what you can't do. Look, in our conversation today, Darren, what I can do for you is listen to you, and I will record the problems you've raised. What I can't do in this conversation, though, is fix everything you're going to raise. I want you to be clear about that from the start.
Very cool.
That's also really, really helpful to
You're
people.
setting expectations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Mark, how can people find you and work with you? What's the best way?
Look, I'm going to start with LinkedIn because I know that most of us use it. LinkedIn is great because there's a record there of the conversation, which is not always there in an email. Yeah. So email Mark McPherson 1. There's always more than one Mark McPherson, but look at this smiling face. You'll find it there.
Love it.
So Mark, that's a great way. If you're not connected with me, connect with me. I will respond, and you can ask any question you like. I just want to make this clear to your listeners that if you just want to get something off your chest about someone you work with, or in one case, a woman a while ago said, "You won't believe what my husband did." I wasn't going to offer any sort of project or coaching session. I could have, but if I can help, that's great. Yeah. So LinkedIn's best. I also have, like everyone else, a website and email, but all of these things are very clear on my LinkedIn site. So I think that's a great place to go. Let's start with that.
Love it. And I'm assuming that you would work with people in person, via video conference, group, individual, absolutely. Corporate, whatever.
Absolutely. I'm working with a bunch of new managers, 5 at the moment, all from the one very large organization, 5. And that works, I think, really well because they're scattered all around the place. I've had phone calls and Zoom calls with people in other states. It's whatever suits the person I'm working with. Yeah. Some prefer it in person.
Yeah, amazing. Love it. Yeah. But I've really enjoyed this. We had a good unpacking session on all these different types of individuals and conversations.
We covered a lot of territory.
Covered a lot of ground. We've learned a lot. Is there anything that you want to leave our audience with before we finish?
Look, that's... There are lots of types of tough conversations. They're tough for different reasons. I have 52 types of difficult people, but really, it doesn't matter who they are. Don't get caught up in the types. What type are they? Mr. Negative?
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
It's all about what is the violation? What did they do wrong? Yeah. At every staff meeting, John, when someone makes a comment, you always say, oh, that won't work, whatever it happens to be. So remember those, I call them the basics. If people want FEWER, I have a little one-page handout for you. You could write 20 pages on it, and I have. But if they want that, please just get in contact with me on LinkedIn and say, hey, I forgot about that. I didn't understand what the W was or whatever. Yeah, just I'll give it to you. It's not a problem.
Love it. Awesome. Well, Mark, really appreciate you coming on the show. It's been a lovely conversation for Friday afternoon. We've earned ourselves a weekend off.
You've grilled me. I'm exhausted.
But yeah, I'm exhausted too. But I've learnt a lot. It's been fascinating.
Thank you so much.
We've gone deep today, so I hope the audience really takes from this and internalizes it, reflects on it We can all use this information and learn something. When none of us are perfect, we can all get better.
I've made plenty of mistakes.
Yep. So everybody, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Please thank Mark for coming on the show, and we'll see you next episode for Playing with Perspective, the Suspended Animation Podcast. Thanks again, Mark.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again for joining me for another episode of Playing with Perspective, the Suspended Animation Podcast. If you would like to join me as a guest on the show, I would be delighted to collaborate. Just reach out via www.suspendedanimation.com.au. Also, remember to click on the link in the show notes for loads of great podcasting resources, webinars, courses, and opportunities to help you on your podcast journey. Many of them free. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.